This is a null. Nulls have been in Hypixel Skyblock since day one. Although they may seem uninteresting to your average player, they have an extensive history which make them one of Skyblock's most iconic glitched items. Before going into detail about how these items were obtained, you first need to know the four main categories of nulls that will be covered in this video. Null Heads, Null Maps, Null Blocks, and Null Fishing items. Almost every item in each of these categories were obtained in very similar ways. Null Heads are without a doubt the most common null. I can almost guarantee that you've seen this item numerous times throughout your Hypixel Skyblock experience. The way these items are obtained is by erasing the item's Skyblock ID, which makes it a null head by default. The first ever recorded method of obtaining it was simply placing any placeable head, and then placing water near it, causing the head to break, and turn into a null Steve head. If you have any heads like these which have no Skyblock IDs, scrolling over them in your hotbar, or dropping them, will cause them to revert into a null head. Null maps are definitely the most boring types of nulls. They were made very easily back in the day by simply making regular maps, and turning them into filled maps and dropping them. I guess that the filled map item just wasn't really intended to be used in Hypixel Skyblock. The cool part about this item, however, is there are 65,535 different possible variants, despite them all looking the exact same. Every time you create a map without switching servers, the ID of this map goes up by 1 for every map created. The limit is 65,535 due to the 16-bit integer limit which stops the map IDs from going anywhere outside the interval of -32,767 to +32,767. I highly recommend watching Woodchuck321's video on it, linked in the description. Null blocks are mostly known for their strange appearance, as well as the countless different types obtainable. Since most null blocks lack a texture, they appear as pink and purple blocks that look enormous when you hold them in 1.8. Blocks become null when their damage values are manipulated, changing them into a block not compatible with Skyblock's version. However, if you change your game to a newer version, their texture is revealed to you. Some of these nulls don't only look cool, but have some attributes which make them a malicious tool which can be used to disrupt another player's experience. Nulls with the Minecraft IDs leaves 2 and log 2 crash whatever player is gullible enough to place them. These nulls have had a variety of different methods, some complicated, and some as simple as mining a block with Silk Touch. The most notable method for obtaining these strange items was using day and night savers. Placing them simultaneously on your island created a glitched region which changed the damage values of any block placed inside. Sadly, most nulls are no longer able to be transferred across servers. The last, and probably the most interesting null items, are the null fishing items. This category consists of null boots, null bows, and null fishing rods. These are commonly found on the auction house for a hefty sum of coins, due to them being some of the only functional null items. Back in the day, it was also possible to dye your null boots, which make them exceedingly more rare today. These items were first obtained by randomly fishing up what normally appears as low durability equipment in vanilla Minecraft. However, because the items in Hypixel Skyblock do not have durability, they appear as null blocks. Now I know a few of you are wondering about the few unique nulls that don't fit into any of these categories. I've saved these for last because these are by far the most unique and rarely seen nulls in the game. The first is the null spawn egg. It appears the same as a regular spawn egg, however it has the damage values of 97 or 99, which make it null. It doesn't have a function, but it is a very rare item that a very few amount of players have currently. It was obtained during the April 2022 Crystal Hollows bug, if you were one of the few players that got it out of the Sea Creature Guide menu. The second misfit null I'll be talking about is the Dragon Head Null. This null is quite a bit more common than the null spawn egg, but it is overall a way cooler item in my opinion. It can be worn on your head, and it leaves countless players very confused when they see it. The sad thing about this item is that players in Minecraft version 1.8 see it as a null texture or a skeleton head, as it did not exist until the 1.9 version of Minecraft. Saying that the creation of this item was very complex is an understatement. For some reason, if you were able to place a piece of furniture and any skull in the same block, it was possible to manipulate the damage values of the skull, causing it to change into one of 5 different mob heads. The damage values could be manipulated based on the direction the original skull was facing. If it was facing east, the skull would turn into a null dragon head. The very last, and probably the most mind-boggling null, is one I'm sure many of you are familiar with. The null banner. This null was talked about in the past by YouTubers like timedeo, due to its extraordinary attributes. When held, the item messed with every player's game in close proximity, making everything appear warped and out of place. It could be easily used to crash other players too, by dropping it, putting it in an item frame, or having a player simply hover over it with their mouse.
Oh, he's running away. Hello. And it crashes my game!
Understandably, Hypixel staff have taken precaution to prevent the use of this item from further disrupting the experience of players, so you will not see its effects in real time anytime soon. There were only 2 major ways this item was created. The first was done during the first ever dark auctions in July of 2019. During these auctions, blocks in spawn could be mined and obtained due to a mistake on the admin's end. The banners on each of the shopkeepers were broken, marking the first ever null banners in Hypixel Skyblock. For the next 7 months, this item was a very rare collectible which very few players had. The most notable players being timedeo and Super Red Hulk 1. Unfortunately for them, disaster struck as the first ever traveling zoo event started, in February of 2020. This event was meant to spawn the traveling zoo stand on only the hub island, except that's not at all what happened. Every single player who logged into Hypixel Skyblock would have one of these stands spawn on their private islands during this event. The problem with that? The stands each contained 2 of these game warping banners, turning them from a very sought-after collectible into an item just about as rare as dirt. Following this occurrence, Hypixel staff made the null banner untransferable, making the item impossible to buy, sell, or use maliciously to crash players in public islands. That concludes the history of every null in Hypixel Skyblock. I hope you've enjoyed, and have a fantastic day.